Hi, guys. This week, we decided we didn't want to just, promote our Patreon. It felt more appropriate to maybe promote some organizations that are working towards trying to bring some sort of peaceful resolution or aid to the people suffering in Gaza right now. This is also, something that hits close to home for me as an American Jewish person. And yeah, I just would ask that, check out Jewish Voice for Peace. If not now, when Gaza Mutual Aid. Check that out, if you will, this week. I think I'd like to express solidarity with the, Palestinians who are, just being effectively genocided by Israel right now. And of course, also, mourning the lives of the, Israeli civilians. And it's really shitty. And I would just ask that people, try and do whatever they can to help out this week. So yeah, I just wanted to say that up at the front of the show this week.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, now let's get on to the show.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Nile. And boy, is it spooky season. I know, okay, I will say we talked a little off mic about this earlier, entirely unrelated. I'm on a big spooky binge. Yeah. I know you're just getting your festivities started in terms of movie watching and stuff, but it is It is the time for the horror movies, the pumpkins, the fucking candy. It's a fantastic time of year.
Oh yeah, it's the best. It's my favorite time of year. I am that guy who is obsessed with spooky stuff, the Halloween aesthetic. I love Halloween. I love horror. Mm-hmm. And so I actually kind of had like I didn't get to start in on movies and such quite yet. I've been very busy. But part of that is because I have been subjecting myself to, I kind of thought it would be interesting to subject myself to real life body horror.
Yeah.
Just to see how that goes, see what that experience is like.
Now,
so,
Are you deciding to take more of like the Cronenbergian surgical route, or are you taking more of the like Yuzna Society where it's just like a bunch of
fleshy
morphed flesh orginess?
No, it's definitely more the surgical route, because I basically had I was touring. I was with a hospital tour, as you do. Touring a hospital just to check it out. Like, oh hey, here's this surgery center, and they were like, oh, Kyle's here. Well, we heard you really love horror. What if we just surgically inserted a foot-long tube into your dick hole and made you piss orange for the season? Mm-hmm. It's just, just kind of get you into the season. And then the finale of all that is that in a couple days, there's actually a string attached to the tube that they surgically inserted in me. And by the way, if this is your first episode of It Gets Weird, I have no fear about talking about my own dick and penis.
Both of them, huh?
Yeah.
How do you differentiate?
It's I'll tell you what, it's hard to differentiate.
Oh, fuck you.
And I'll so in a couple days,
dick in the streets, penis in the sheets.
Yeah. In a couple days, I get to experience the body horror of pulling a tube out of my organs. So that's, I get to feel that kind of leave my kidney and ureter. And yeah, so just, I guess what I'm saying is, for the Halloween holidays, try experiencing a kidney stone try experiencing a kidney stone that undergoes one surgery where they can't get it out, and they wake you up from anesthesia and they're like, hey, it's still in there because it's really big and we're going to have to do this again. And just, I don't know, try a whole month's worth of, I call it body horror.
I mean, alternately, I watched, speaking of Cronenberg, if you want to see him act, I watched a movie called Nightbreed last night, from 1990, directed, written, and based on a book by Clive Barker. And it fucking whips. It's if you're into, like, I don't know, Guillermo del Toro by way of Labyrinth, check it out. It's fucking great.
Yeah, I guess you could do that if you're not interested in, I don't know, like surgical body horror on yourself, whatever. You could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I figured you're taking the more like experiential route. I'm going a little more classical by just watching movies. But I respect your path.
Thank you. Yeah, hey, so just, try not to get kidney stones. This is a PSA. That shit sucks so bad.
Yeah, I always think about a friend of ours from childhood. I first learned that kidney stones existed because his dad kept getting them because his dad just loved orange juice.
What?
And just would drink like way too much orange juice, and his doctor had to like tell him to stop because all the vitamin C was giving him kidney stones.
Oh, I didn't know that was okay. See, they told me to drink less coffee.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so, I don't know exactly how that ties into, like, I don't know what the correlation is there, but I'm assuming there is one if they're telling you as a medical professional. But yeah, so I guess if you start your morning out with coffee and orange juice every morning,
you might think about it.
Yeah, you might want to rethink your proposition.
Well, sorry for all the penis talk up front, but
yeah, I'm sure this is going to tie into the episode directly.
Well,
I'm sure.
I just this is how I cope is by making fun of my very uncomfortable situation. But no, I mean, we are in full October swing now, and it is the spooky season, as you said. And you know what that means? I absolutely got to talk about spooks and hauntings and ghouls and ghasts and goblins and witches and specters and spirits and phantasms. You get the picture. And when I look into stories of hauntings these days, people have probably picked up on a trend with me. I tend to look around the world for locations we haven't really, discussed yet, haven't really gotten into. And so that's why this week, Nile, I'm taking us to Madrid, Spain, to visit Palacio de Linares.
All right. So I feel okay. We've been to Spain for alien encounters, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think we might have had. I think I did a Spanish cryptid, but I don't know if we've done a Spanish haunting. I don't
know if we've done a haunting yet, and I think that there's some. I think Spain probably got brought up in the however many years ago it was that you did the Stay Behind conspiracy. Whatever that was called. That I can't think of it now.
Serpo? Project Serpo?
No. Project Serpo is like the jump room to the alien planet.
Yeah, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking that?
I don't know why I can't think of it. This is like one of the biggest
it's
parapolitics.
It's because I tried to fucking forget about it because it's so
Gladio.
It's upsetting.
It's grim. But yeah, I don't know if we've done a haunting.
Yeah.
We may have. Like the one thing that I was thinking to myself while doing this was like, there's a possibility that there was like maybe an exorcism out here. Like, I mean, the Catholic connection's pretty strong.
Oh yeah, true.
So, but that's a possibility.
Kyle, you know what would really help is if we could finally get the It Gets Weird map where we put a pin color coded for cryptid, UFO, aliens. I know that we've been talking about this for a long time. We just cannot find any fucking encounters in the top right and top left corners of the Earth. That will allow us to keep the map up.
It keeps falling down. It keeps falling down, and so we're gonna have to try and like reach out to those areas and really just to get that thing.
Yeah. So if anyone knows of any cryptid sightings in the, I guess that would be like Upper Pacific Ocean. Let me know.
In the middle of it, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, Palacio de Linares. Also, in a similar fashion to my ghost episodes like this, there is some historical context for these hauntings that's interesting. But it also had me realizing, again, just how ignorant I am of Spanish history, like so many of these things do. But before we get into like any like the history that's involved with why this place is believed to be haunted, let's begin with the legend that you maybe can't explicitly consider history, although it is history as a legend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is the legend surrounding the Marqués and Marquesa Linares, because it is out of this legend that the story of a haunting is, shall we say, birthed.
Okay.
So
it's their metaphorical child vis-a-vis paranormal experiences.
Not even metaphorical child, like actual child.
Oh, okay.
So the Palacio de Linares, apologize if I mispronounce any of these, and it's also Spain Spanish, so like that's a different sounding S sound, I'm pretty sure, so it might be like Linares. I'm not like trying to make fun, but they have that like lisp sound in the Spain Spanish, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what the history of that is either, so.
I just remember that from my my Spanish classes that would like once a month like talk a little bit about Spain Spanish as opposed to Mexican Spanish or whatever else you want to call it.
I had the same thing.
Yep.
But
man, the American educational system is kind of fucking stupid.
we're not good.
Anytime I talk about it, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know how much I actually got out of that.
I'm pretty sure that at one point it was explained to me why there is like the different pronunciation and stuff. Like, I mean, it makes sense, like regional differences, but like why that is a specific sticking point. But like you said, our education system can be pretty estupido. So yeah. So the place, so Palacio de Linares is it's a palace, and it was built over the course of 18 years on the Gran Via of Madrid, Spain in 1872. Now, here's a little thing about it that I want you to stick in your back pocket for the end of the episode. The place is unfucking believably lavish. Lavish to the point of obscenity, in my opinion.
Like Rococo style, or like what are we talking about?
Lots of different styles. We'll get to that. The Marqués de Linares, Jose de Murga y Riolid, was born in 1833 in industrial era Spain. And Jose's father was the former Marqués de Linares, Mateo de Murga, and he had been a financier who made a fortune in the Americas with railroad projects. And this involvement with the railroads and the Americas made them one of the richest families in the country at the time. So, of course, Jose is the heir to this fortune.
Mm-hmm.
So, legend has it that Jose had fallen in love with his future wife, a woman named Raimunda de Osorio y Ortega, who was allegedly the daughter of a cigar seller. Now,
why allegedly? Is this just like something that we don't have records of? Or?
Well, in the way the story goes, her parentage is quote unquote uncertain.
Okay.
So this is like how so many like wealthy family love disputes go. Jose was forbidden to marry Raimunda due to her quote unquote unknown parentage. So apparently, his father's directive that their union was forbidden, this didn't really get in between Jose and Raimunda's love as they kept seeing each other despite it all. And as a result, Mateo essentially banished his son to England to finish his studies as a means of separating the two lovebirds. But like the way I was kind of understanding it is like Jose also was trying to finish these studies and he wanted to comply with his father's wishes, even though he's, in love with this woman. So I don't think it was that he was explicitly like, you go to England, get the fuck out of here because of your love thing. I think it was just more Mateo's solution to the problem was to be like, you're finishing your studies in England. So,
okay. Like this is straight up the setup to like a haunted house. Like Mike Flanagan is frothing at the mouth listening to the story at the moment, you know?
Yes. Oh, definitely. And it gets better. It gets way better. I guess worse is probably the better term to use, but better in the sense that ghosts will exist here.
Well, you could say that it gets weirder.
It gets weirder. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So
after returning to Spain sometime later, Jose found that in his absence, his father passed away. And Mateo's massive wealth now was windfalling directly into his lap. So he is the heir, and he now has all this money.
Damn.
Now, despite being in mourning, Jose seems to have not given a fuck about his father's decree about the whole marriage thing. And so he and Raimunda got married anyways when he got back. Now,
I guess that's one way to solve your problem, I guess. You know, like,
yeah.
If you wait long enough, it takes
eventually, eventually the dad who forbids your marriage will pass away and give you all his money and let you build a lavish fucking palace in the middle of Madrid.
Where's that Romeo and Juliet adaptation where
they just wait for them to die?
Yeah, instead of like, you know, the poison and everything, it's just that they just like hide out and date on the DL until their parents die.
They do some dating on the DL and among other things.
Yeah.
But you know, it was too much to bear eventually, and they couldn't wait, so they had to fucking
kill each other.
Yeah, kill each other. Die together.
That is how Romeo and Juliet ends. They kill each other.
By the way, yeah, but yeah, they. Yeah,
I'm
they
just
both
seeing
take 12 paces away from one another and shoot each other in the head simultaneously.
Yeah. Sometimes you just say things just to see if someone will yell at you, you know?
Yeah. No, that's always fun to do on a podcast, you know, especially with like the fact that our podcast automatically publishes to YouTube, where I have seen some of the most deranged comments ever.
I don't even look. I straight up don't.
I see him occasionally, and I'm like, oh, okay, this person's really crazy. So yeah, I'm just putting just absolutely false information out is kind of fun sometimes. So they get married, and it's said that during the early on in their marriage, with their, you know, happy life that seemed to be ahead of them. They're happy, expecting to, you know, have this wonderful marriage. And then they discover a shocking truth that would just fuck the whole thing up. So, a letter had been left behind by Jose's late father. And this letter detailed the truth about Raimunda's mysterious parentage.
Oh, is this a don't marry your sister situation?
Yes.
All right.
Both Jose and Raimunda actually shared the same father, making his new wife his half-sister. And I guess Raimunda was born out of wedlock from an affair that Mateo had.
Okay, so I know that, like, you know, there's like the Hidden Fortress and Flash Gordon and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But so I didn't realize that George Lucas was pulling from like Spanish 18th century ghost stories for the plot of Star Wars.
Yeah, this is it's a real Luke and Leia sort of scenario here. And eventually, you know, of course, the Jose and Raimunda do adopt a Wookiee into their sort of living situation. And I did hear that the Wookiee would kind of be a part of the love triangle that these three would have. And there's actually furthermore scandal where they both have a child with the Wookiee somehow.
Yeah, and none of it works the way that you think it's going to in terms of who's birthing and carrying these children.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. Remember, Star Wars is totally a sci-fi world, and none of these people are humans, so it doesn't work the way you think it does.
Yeah.
But I for some reason, when you said they adopted a Wookiee, I immediately just imagined a Three's Company situation. Did you ever watch that fucking show as a kid?
Absolutely not.
Okay. I didn't know. Look, you were full blown cartoons kid, not a Nick at Night kid. I watched way too much Three's Company as a child when I probably didn't understand 80% of the jokes due to them being either from the 70s or more like blue than I would understand, you know?
Is this a sitcom about a throuple?
It's a sitcom about two women who live together, and then there's a guy who tries to become their roommate, and they are able to tell their landlord that he is gay, so it's not a problem that he's moving in.
I've heard of this, yeah.
And so it's a hijinks of him like living at and like trying to not be caught by this landlord and stuff.
And they all fuck each other.
Not explicitly, but
yeah. Well, the Wookiee and the Spanish Marqués, they do all fuck each other.
Yeah.
So this is all, of course, scandalous. You know, like you married your sister. Classic whoopsie. But here's the thing: it gets worse from there.
Oh God. Okay.
So supposedly the Linares family, now married in this scandalous union, they wrote to Pope Leo XIII about this, grim discovery about the nature of their marriage. And ultimately, the two received, which I didn't know what this was, but the two received a papal bull, which was like signing off on their marriage. It was essentially like a permission slip for their marriage. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
The permission from the Pope, the papal permission, that had an interesting stipulation.
Okay.
The two of them could remain married so long as they never fucked. They can't, so he can't get it. Neither of them can get it wet with each other. They cannot have sexual intercourse together. They cannot do it nasty style. They can't, like no missionary,
Did they specify
no
like hand
style.
stuff?
Yeah, the Pope wrote like hand stuff's fine.
How
mouth
did he
stuff
include
on
like a
occasion is
diagram?
okay. Yeah.
Like this to this is okay, but this to this isn't.
Yeah. Dick to there's a couple spots you can maybe fit it in.
Dick to elbow, perfectly fine.
Nobody's going to complain about dick to elbow, and frankly, keep that one to yourselves.
Yeah. All right. Like, so I love this like weird Gordian knot slicing bowl by the Pope. Yes, you can stay married to your half sister as long as you don't fuck.
Just like don't put your penis in any wet areas. Don't have sex. Don't put your penis in like her pussy. And don't
why are we doing this?
Probably don't have anal. Because that, people
I thought that was
that
like the loophole.
No, it's not. See, like
loophole in the
say,
poophole.
Oh, Jesus Christ. People say you can't get pregnant from anal, but that's I don't know. There's some stuff that can happen. People are sitting on toilet seats that have been cummed on and getting
What are
pregnant.
we doing?
I don't know. I'm just saying what the Pope said.
This is all direct quote from the bowl.
I have like a big list here from the Pope about what acts they were.
In paragraph 4, it says, sometimes that stuff happens with the toilets.
Yeah. That foot, the toilet stuff happens. Foot stuff is okay, but you got to keep them a certain sort of length apart.
Jesus.
Toes and buttholes, that's fine, but please, no P to the V. That's the important one. Yeah, that's the important. Yeah. The old bowling ball. So, anyways, that's what the Pope said. They can remain married so long as they never, consummate it, essentially. And with the paperwork all signed off and given the papal seal of approval, minus all the other stuff that I just said, the Linares, oh my God. The Linares family, skipped home to pretty much immediately violate this stipulation. And violate it, they did.
Oh, is it like a multiple child situation here?
It's a multiple dozens of sex acts, which I actually have the list here.
Okay. Straight from the, now did the Pope's like investigators take this, take these notes and stuff?
Yeah.
That bowl came with like a 24/7 monitoring from like a papal investigation crew.
Yeah, basically every act plus every act. And think of a sex act that two consenting adults can have. They did it. And so with this violation, of course, came a newborn daughter.
Okay.
a child of incest, which is, that's a scandal on top of a scandal, right? So,
Sure.
Unfortunately, the Linares legacy grows even darker here. But this is also where it descends into even more rumor. But it is said that they murdered this child not very long after birth to cover up their incestuous union.
Interesting. So, okay, so they just went ahead and just took care, like killed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
was that so they wouldn't get in trouble with like the Pope? Or just because they didn't want a child? Or
I think it was more like we cannot have living proof that we had like an incestuous union, quite straight up. Like, I think that's just like bad PR, basically. So that's kind of how I understand it. But so the rumors continue here, and some claim that the body of the child was said to have been buried within the walls of the palace. And, if you've been paying attention to any of our historical haunting episodes, something like this is a recipe for supernatural disaster.
Oh, yeah. Like, especially if you don't like salt the cavity that you're putting the baby in first, like you gotta take some precautions.
Yeah, you gotta salt.
If you're gonna bury a body in the wall, you have to take some precautions, or else it'll haunt you.
Exactly. However, here's an interesting thing to point out. There are a few rumors surrounding this child, and depending on what website you go to, you'll find different versions of this story. And again, this is very morbid as well, but there are like rumors about the different ways that the Linares family killed the child. I don't need to go into the details. Just suffice to say that nobody seems to be able to agree on what exactly happened. And in even one of the stories, I found the child wasn't like murdered. They were just kept away from the public because she supposedly had deformities from her incestuous birth. And then in this version of the story, she dies by what are essentially natural causes due to illnesses inherited through their, incestuous relationship. So after the murder or death of their child, it's said that Jose would be struck so terribly with grief that he would commit suicide.
Oh, okay.
And then, and there's even some bullshit about them claiming to have found a bullet, like a bullet wound, like he was shot in the head. I don't think that's even like, I don't want to like, look, I don't want to like skip too far ahead, but like, that's probably not true.
Okay.
I don't know that this is just one of many different rumors surrounding this family. So yeah, he's so grief stricken about their situation with their daughter that he commits suicide, but not after decreeing that his body be buried in the palace garden. And then it's said that Raimunda did not last much longer after Jose, and after the two of them died in 1901, the palace would just kind of start passing into different ownership. I didn't really bother looking into who owned it after them because it's not relevant to the story, but basically there would be a few different owners before it would then be sitting abandoned for decades in the mid 20th century.
That's that's just such like a weird thing for these massive old fucking mansions and palaces and stuff just to sit empty.
Yeah. Well, the way it was I sort of understood it is that the like last heirs to own the place like didn't pass it down to anybody or something. And I think then it ends up in the city's hands in some way. Because what follows it being abandoned for like, I don't know, it was like maybe 50, 60 years. There was this, in 1990, there was a restoration and rehabilitation effort taking place at the palace. That was, I believe, kind of overseen by the city of Madrid. And then by 1992, the palace would become the headquarters of Casa de America, which is a consortium composed of Madrid city council members and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I guess their whole thing is trying to develop a closer connection between Spain and the Americas. And so since the early 1990s takeover by Casa de America, it's been this, cultural site. It's host to all kinds of events, art walks. There's a restaurant there, stuff of that nature.
No ghost tours?
Well, I don't think that there are tours of the place, but I don't think that they're explicitly ghost tours.
Okay.
However, it did come out that during the period between 1990 and 1992, during work on restoration of the palace, workers began to experience strange and unsettling things in the building. So these would be things you might expect from a lavish haunted palace. That's, disembodied footsteps coming from empty rooms, doors opening and closing all on their own, and worst of all, disembodied screams that pierce the silence in the middle of the night.
Okay.
So
those are all like pretty standard haunting things.
Yeah,
nothing crazy. But I would say that like if I were working at like restoring an old palace and started hearing random disembodied screams in the middle of the night, I would also probably get worried. So
yeah, no, I would freak the fuck out for sure. Now here's a little side story that was interesting, but I didn't get a ton of details on this. But I think this is mostly why the paranormal ended up sticking to this place in 1990. So in 1989, the year before the restoration began, the famous Spanish priest and parapsychologist, Father Jose Maria Pilon, and a team from his organization called the Hepta Group would investigate the palace and discover what they referred to as, quote, powerful psychic forces. And so they claimed that these forces were in the chapel room and the Marquise's bedroom. They also registered drastic sudden temperature changes around the palace, which, that's a very well-established ghost activity. And one of the researchers, Sol Blanco Soler, took over 450 photos in the palace, 11 of which had negatives that supposedly showed these mysterious lights that were not registered by the human eye at the time the photographs were taken. And these lights were interpreted as, quote-unquote, energy fields spurred on by the tragic events that had befallen the family there. Furthermore, examination in a photo laboratory apparently claimed that there had been no tampering or manipulation of the photos. Couldn't find out what photo laboratory this was and who confirmed this, but that's what the articles will tell you about this story. So Father Jose and the Hepta Group, like, he also founded, I think, what ends up being the biggest Spanish parapsychology institute. So he's like king shit of fuck mountain as far as parapsychology goes in this era in Spain. So he's a big name.
King of kind of shit mountain there in terms of parapsychology being a little, a little Wild Westy at that time, but sure.
Well,
good for him.
But there, I guess the point is that Father Jose and the Hepta Group are probably an interesting topic in their own right. And I discovered by reading about all this that apparently there's a Netflix original called Phenomena. I've never watched this. I don't fucking know anything about
not
this.
the Argento movie.
No.
Phenomena.
No.
Okay.
Definitely not that. But there's a Netflix series called Phenomena that I guess is about Father Jose.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently. Because there's another investigation that they have in 1999 in this I forget what it was, but it's following their 1999 investigation into a totally different story. I guess he was very I think he was most notable for being a big name in psychic dowsing. That's his whole thing. And he but he's all the parapsychologists where they're just we want to investigate this stuff, somewhat scientifically. But again, he's also if he is an actual priest. So like he has like a vested interest in there being an afterlife that these like, spirits can come from or whatever. So who knows? I mean, again, probably worth checking this guy's story out at some point. But the point is he was a big name in this area, and he kind of like he seems to have spurred on a lot of the paranormal stuff at the palace.
Cool.
So, and as far as I could tell, they were like the first group to actually like examine the place as a haunted location. So, strange new details would emerge from this investigation. There were these claims, which again, none of these things were actually proven, but there were claims that human remains were found in the underground area of the palace. And one team member even claimed to have witnessed a curly-haired girl in a white dress running through the ballroom.
Interesting. So there's no actual like confirmed human remains, but there were reports of them.
Yeah.
And one person saw a ghost.
It's hard for me to like tell because like there's a lot of stuff that's like behind Spanish speaking internet.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether it was that somebody from his team reported that there were remains found. Like I think at the very least, Father Jose, like he's trying to do this kind of thing in an official capacity. It's not like they're just like, breaking into like, I think that there's like an actual official capacity that this investigation happened, but I don't know whether they actually reported human remains or whether that was a rumor that came about from the investigation just happening at all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It could be apocryphal. It could be, but I'm always just curious, but I know that stuff is incredibly hard to confirm because anytime you're dealing with something like this, there's so much hearsay and there's not like a, journalistic standard of paranormal investigation records or anything, like it's all just best guesses. So whether or not it shows up in the most common stories versus only one story or whatever is really all you have to go on.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So all of these reports, I guess, would end up being submitted to Madrid City Hall. And then after that investigation, then the workers come in 1990 and all these stories start flying around about ghosts. And these ghost stories seem to stem from the legend of the Marqués and Marquise Linares, Jose and Raimunda, and this whole story of their illegitimate incestuous child and all, the tragedy that surrounded that story. Mm-hmm. And supposedly... And here's why this is another little thing where it's like, it makes you go like, this is maybe making the whole story of what happened to their daughter strange. But there was a life-sized dollhouse that the Marquise had built for their daughter, like in the palace.
What do you mean by life-sized?
I think by like she could walk into it and go around in it like,
Jesus.
Physically,
okay.
Like it was a big ass dollhouse. Is I think that's what it is, but that's how it gets.
That's kind of what I assumed, but that seems like
pretty wild, pretty
even
lavish.
If you build a house at like half size, that still takes up so much fucking space.
It's pretty big. I think it's still there too. So I think like,
damn.
I think you can tour the place and see this dollhouse. But I didn't like find a photo of it. So, but supposedly paranormal events were stronger if you go inside this life-size dollhouse. Now, during the Restoration period, another famous Spanish parapsychologist, Dr. Carmen Sanchez Castro, conducted their own research on the paranormal phenomena at the palace. Dr. Castro would claim to obtain EVP recordings inside the palace of a woman saying something about the murder of her daughter. And so this was presumably Raimunda de Linares.
Okay.
And the story of this recording was quickly picked up by newspapers. And so on May 31st, 1990, people are like getting this story of like this EVP of the woman and her daughter. And eventually this led to the recording getting aired on Spanish national television. And so for believers, this was like, oh, the tragic story of the Linares family. Like, this is true. Here is the like paranormal evidence of it. And we have ghosts at the palace.
Yeah. Okay. I could see how that kind of legitimized it by putting it out there in some ways.
Yeah. So workers and investigators at the palace would report a number of ghostly encounters. On numerous occasions, the ghost of a man in elegant attire was seen roaming the lower floors of the palace, with many believing him to be the lingering spirit of Matteo de Murga. There have been sightings of a ghostly apparition of a lady in Victorian-era clothes in the upper floors of the palace, and most probably this is believed to be the ghost of Raimunda looking for her child in the halls of where she died.
So kind of a La Llorona type thing.
Yeah, a bit, yeah.
A little bit.
However, this is only part of the story surrounding the Linares Palace and the supposed hauntings. Other newspapers were more skeptical of Dr. Carmen's EVP findings. In the publication El País, the article, "Several experts distrust the research on the ghosts of the Palace of Linares," would say this. And I just have to be upfront here. I had to use like an auto-translate thing to read this article. It's like cited in a couple places, but like I didn't have any official translation. So I apologize if it seems a little wonky, but here's what it says.
Okay.
Several experts in paranormal phenomena have questioned the outcome of the investigations carried out by Carmen Sanchez de Castro in the Palace of Linares, stating one of them that the voices of the alleged ghosts are actually a, quote, mix of skilled tricks. However, the popular expectation unleashed by the case caused about 200 people to break into the palace in the early morning of yesterday, located in the central square of Cibeles, with the eagerness to check the strange phenomena live. Alvaro Fernandez, vice president of the Rational Alternative to Pseudosciences. What an organization name, by the way.
Rats? No.
Yeah,
Rat P?
Rap. Like,
rap.
Yo, do a rap. A rapidy rap.
All right.
DJ Jazzy Jeff type stuff. President of the Rational Alternative to Pseudosciences. Fernandez declared that the psychophonies, which is the term that they use to talk about these EVPs, which I think is a bit more like spiritualist leaning. Like that's, I think EVP is a bit more contemporary, I guess. But some places refer to them as psychophonies.
Okay.
Which, presumably coming from like phonics, right? But it's kind of funny to have that name is a bit ironic.
You're a psychophony. That sounds like a weird insult for like elementary school kids on the playground.
These psychophonies recorded by Carmen Sanchez de Castro are a mix of skillful tricks, and added, "We would ask that this lady and her team have the courage to do so again, but with all kinds of witnesses, since the evidence, both sound and graphic, provided to the media do not deserve the credit that they must gather this kind of experience." Basically, there weren't people around when this stuff was recorded, and then, this parapsychologist just comes out and is like, "Oh my God, I have evidence of the ghosts here." And so they're saying like, "Hey, maybe do that again around a bunch of witnesses, and maybe it'll be cool then."
Yeah, that'll make it work. I'm into it.
Tristan Barker, founder of the Asociación Esotericultural Español, yesterday, he told the FA agency his opinion that, quote, "the psychophony they have done here has been cut into 4 pieces. Breaker added, "The last piece, when a girl says, 'Mummy, I die,' that voice and that posture fits with one we did in my house exactly the same." So I think what they're saying is this has been doctored in some way. To make it sound legitimate. And according to city council sources, Dr. Carmen Sanchez de Castro contacted the city councilor of urbanism 11 months ago and explained her intention to carry out a series of studies and experiments in the Palace of Linares. The director of infrastructure of the urban planning management, for thinking that such studies were serious, gave authorization so that she could do her research in the old palace. So this is the part that is very funny to me. it says here that periodically urban planners asked palace guards if the doctor and her assistants caused any kind of problem. As the answer was always negative, they were extended permission to complete their investigations, although they were warned that they could not cause damage to the building, nail nails, or uncover tapestries. So the article here reveals what is basically that there was no academic accreditation check on Dr. Castro because the investigation had not been commissioned by the municipality, I guess. So if it had been
kind of snuck in here, that
essentially is what it sounds like? Yes, like basically, it sounds like they were like, "Hey," they spoke to somebody who just was like, "Oh, this is like a serious investigation," but like it's not like in an official capacity, and they just went in and like people just assumed that they had, you know. I don't quite understand the situation, but it's like
he basically walked in. He walked in wearing like a jumpsuit, and no one questioned him, and he didn't break anything, so no one kicked him out. And is what it sounds like.
I do think Dr. Castro is a woman.
Okay.
Which is very confusing because the article multiple times switches gender.
Okay.
But like it starts off saying like she, the doctor, her.
Okay,
her
so
team.
she just went in there in a jumpsuit and a hard hat,
it was
and no one questioned.
I kind of struggled to find like information on the English speaking side of the web about Dr. Castro. Like I even was like, oh, I gotta, because like I found a really good parapsychology website that kind of was like it has a database, and I was trying to find her on there and I couldn't.
Okay.
But
so is man, that always makes me wonder, is this person just forgotten, or is there some weird fucking bullshit happening here?
I sort of think it's just that like, yes, this person is definitely a part of the reason why the paranormal stories stuck to the palace.
Mm-hmm.
But they were like pretty much immediately, like for as much publicity as they received, and like media attention that was like affirming their investigation, it seems there was a pretty equal pushback. And it just kind of sounds like there was like an outburst of interest in the story that just didn't last super long. But nonetheless, like the rumor and the stories just kind of like lingered at the location, kind of divorced from Dr. Castro. That's kind of how I see it. I don't know if that's exactly how it went down. Because like, again, I'm missing, there's some gaps in my information. And again,
okay.
with stuff like this, if there is like a Spanish speaker who's listening to our show who happens to either know about this or has access to this information that I just couldn't get to, hey, please email us, let us know about it, because I would love to know like a more complete picture, because I'm kind of having to guess at some of this.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, if this whole investigation had been ordered by the city council, there would have been required documentation to verify the credibility of Dr. Castro. And instead, the municipality officials considered Castro's team merely as visitors to the palace. Nonetheless, Dr. Castro would remain uninterrupted in their work there and would come away with these EVP claims that were sensational in newspapers and ultimately on television. Another weird little thing that I found in the article, what it seemed to be saying was that Dr. Castro also had a number of other claims. There was one claim that she was like, there was like a gust of air that like shoved her into a wall. So it's like she got pushed by an entity into the wall. And then she also claims to have found, I don't know what this evidence was, but I guess she claimed to have found evidence that there was a ghost residing at the palace of a man who had participated in the 1808 Spanish War of Independence against the French army.
Well, that's just to get this made into a historical site.
Yes.
You know, it's got historical relevance to the revolution.
Absolutely.
And everything. So, that's I always am like, I like when there's stories behind individual ghosts of these kinds of places, because sometimes you hear it's like, oh, there's like it's like in the hotel that I did a while ago in Arizona. There was one room that was just a butcher, and it's like, why is there a butcher ghost in a hotel?
Yeah.
And it's because he fucking stayed there for a while and hung meat from the ceiling. So when you're like, okay, so there's a ghost from this war, and it's like, this was just like a family home of some rich Spaniards. How did the ghost from the war end up there?
You know, he who knows? But
Yeah.
I guess it's just like, I mean, it depends on like what theory of ghosts. It's so like what's the term? It's not very
it's nebulous.
Yeah, so it's like if some people would be like, well, you know, there could be a location of a battle on the site where the palace was put. But then like other people would be like, well, no, like paranormal activity is like attached to the locations. So like the palace is the location. So I mean, I guess the point that I'm making is like this kind of a spirit residing, like this spirit from the war that precedes the existence of the palace sort of is very conflicting with the different sort of beliefs about the paranormal.
Okay.
So, but I guess my point here too is that like, you know, the EVP was like the sensational bit. That's the famous bit, but like, I think there were other things that she claimed that I didn't get. I may not have found all of them because it's, you know, on the Spanish speaking side of the web. Now, here in our last portion, our last little bit, there's one more major thing that sort of spoils the whole story, I'm afraid.
Oh, good. Is there a big like? It turns out all these people were made up for a BBC documentary.
Well, the Linares family was not made up. No.
Okay.
It's just that the tragic story of the Linares family and their daughter is almost definitely not true. Like
how deep are we going here in terms of it not being true?
Just exasperatedly disputed by historians in the area. It's, you know, maybe there's some truth to it, but the thing is, okay, so it's disputed by historians. Historians in the area basically are like, this is not how it went down. One.
Okay.
But that does leave the question of like, well, why did this nasty rumor start and how did it stick so hard to this family that their legacy is now being the souls trapped in the haunted palace with the spirit of their incest daughter?
Yeah, and honestly, they specifically pissed off this one pope pretty directly, so that also doesn't make their case.
That's not very helpful. But it turns out the parading around of immense wealth gets you in trouble with common folk.
Oh hell yeah! This is praxis.
I mean,
this whole ghost story is yeah.
So I found an article. So I've seen photos of this place, and wow. So from the Daily Beast in the article "Incest, a Murdered Love Child, and Endless Gold: Inside Madrid's Most Lavish Gilded Age Palace," written by William O'Connor.
Okay.
I'd love to give you some details about this story and the location that has, you know, stirred up all these rumors. So here's what the article says. The legend has been refuted by the Spanish journalist Torcuato Luca de Tena in Spain's ABC, as he reports that Raimunda's own mother gave her away at the wedding, and it's unlikely she'd have done so in the face of incest. So, probably not going to have that kind of a wedding if it was an incestuous one.
Okay, that's fair.
But this is Spain, and the Linares were arriviste lambs ready for societal slaughter. So, while the legend may seem sufficiently outrageous, it grows even more sinister. So this is where they discuss the papal bull and them conceiving the child. And it goes on to say, whatever could have inspired such a mendacious tale? For an answer, one need only step inside the limestone-clad palace. Nearly every room is a visual gasconade of wealth. Gold, lacquer, exotic woods, crystal, and marble, lots and lots of marble. The home is so opulent, it makes another famous 19th century aristocratic palace across town, the Museo Ceralbo, look almost humble. No wonder Madrid society liked to say that the couple never actually had their food cooked in their house, but instead had ordered every meal from the restaurant Lardy, which, by the way, still exists.
Oh, okay.
To make matters worse, the Marqués refused to follow the recent tradition started by the Marqués de Salamanca of opening one's palace doors to any of the curious population who wished to tour it. Given how strenuously the Linares strutted their wealth, they were lucky to get off with nothing more than the incest rumor. The tour of the palace, it is now open to the public, begins on the ground floor, which was the private level for the Marqués. The floor above, the piano nobile, was for the Marquesa and visitors. The palace's top floor, still closed to the public, was mostly servants' bedrooms. Visitors enter through a stark white oval hall floored with blocks of dark wood, installed originally to muffle the clatter of horses' hooves. On through an incense-filled, to de-streetify you, vestibule, between two simple sets of doors of mahogany and glass, you are in. To access the excess of the piano nobile, one must enter the next stage of oligarch heaven, or wasp hell, ascending by the way of the palace's bifurcated Carrara marble staircase, flanked by walls of colored marble, gold decorative trim, allegorical paintings by Manuel Dominguez, and lit by swooping French brass candelabras in the hands of brass nymphs. The French part was key, as the couple had spent many years in Paris and evidently came away soaked in the Second Empire ethos that there's no such thing as too much.
Yeah, this oh my god. So these guys just like were so opulently wealthy and flared it out showed it to everybody so hard that the entire town just decided that they had an incest baby.
Just fuck you guys.
Yeah, holy shit. All right.
So it goes on. The palace, not including the furnishings or decoration, cost 3 million pesetas, or tens of millions in today's dollars. While there is some debate, the lead architect is generally considered to be Carlos Colubi. Some contend that Colubi was merely adapting the plans of Flemish architect Adolf Albrecht, or that Colubi was the initial architect but replaced by Albrecht in 1879. The three-story white limestone exterior is neo-Baroque with a monumental sculpted family crest looming on top. Recalling the example of the famous Medicis, Monte Cristo wrote, "Every room has its own mythological ceiling painting, painted by some of Madrid's most notable painters at the time, Francisco Pradilla, Casto Plasencia, Alejandro Ferrant, Manuel Dominguez, Valeriano Dominguez, Becker, Geronimo Suñol, and Francisco Amerigo. Tapestries were ordered from the Gobelins, carpets from the Spanish Royal Tapestry Factory, fabrics from Lyon, lacquered furniture from Vernis Martin, sculptures by Carrier Belus."
Jesus. I don't know what half that shit is.
I don't either.
That means it has to be expensive.
It has to be fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Although
I'm sure that like they probably took out some extra, just some elephants, just to get some ivory and shit, just to add everything they could.
I'm sure to make it I am safe. I feel safe in the assumption that a full exotic pet shop had to die for this interior.
Yeah.
It says, although construction began in 1872, the house was not ready for occupation until 1884, and then the interior decoration would not be completed until 1890. The family lived first on the third floor and then the mezzanine once that was finished. The piano nobile was the last floor to be finished. And then here's the official story. On October 28th, 1901, Raimunda died. And then just 6 months later, Jose died at the age of 69 from a lung condition. And like I said, the rumor mill would attribute it to a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Okay.
And so the status-enhancing chateau was no more than a glittering sepulcher. But oh, what glitter. And here's the thing. It goes on. It's like this article goes on and on and on. I don't want to like read all of it, but it is just endless, and it's like clashing like styles too, from all kinds of styles. I did want to read this one because it's so fucking crazy.
Okay.
It says, through a set of sleek black and gold doors, One enters the dining room, where 22-karat gold mosaics frame more silk tapestries. Two nearly life-size bronze semi-nudes holding candelabras rest on a hulking Portuguese red marble fireplace, the largest in the house. While most of the palace room's exuberance and abundant decoration is voyeuristic fun, the showstopper is the Chinese room, adjoining the dining room and used for smoking and card playing. The profusion of showy materials and ornamentation that came to define the Second Empire were what one today might call a hot mess. Empress Eugenie, gazing upon the stylistic cornucopia of Garnier's Paris Opera House, harumphed. What is this style? This is no style. It is not Greek or Louis XVI. However, the rise of eclecticism, a mixture of different historical styles, inspired some truly remarkable buildings, decorative objects, and interior design. The Chinese room is chief among them. Mercury red lacquered walls imported from China, edged with black and gold, dominate the room, contrasting sharply with the gossamer-like hand-painted rosé silk panel landscape scenes. The interior-facing sides of the doors have ditched the Baroque and Rococo styles of their peers and are instead decorated with beautiful marquetry depicting a vaguely Chinese village scene. The room's real prizes are the sensuous gold dragons winding around the window casings. One can only imagine how provoking this room would have been while slightly inebriated. Wreathed in smoke, it might have taken years for a visitor to catch some of its finer details, such as the out-of-place Greek key running along at waist height on the wall, the arms of the brass chandelier that are actually dragons, or the comparatively simple yet lovely silk ceiling panel.
You know those posts that go around that are like, if a 17th century peasant were to like eat a Dorito, it would literally kill them.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot when I hear stuff about like these old palaces and stuff where it's like, no, the people back then also had wild excesses. They just didn't have like factory produced cheese dust. And so like I really don't think I honestly think that there's kind of an equal opportunity for them to travel to our time and get killed as us to do to them. And also maybe they would just try to make us all into, start spreading incest rumors to us because we have access to like butter,
Yeah, definitely.
So,
yeah. So they were just fucking parading around insane wealth.
They just annoyed the fuck out of everyone so bad.
They pissed off the people in the area so much that these rumors stuck to them. And yeah, that is the Linares Palace that is supposedly haunted. You can visit it today. And yeah, that's the story. There's like some historical reasons why they had so much money and why all the gold and all this stuff. It's not that interesting, but I did want to paint you a picture of just how egregious this was. And why just seeing it probably pissed off people who did not have money. And it also struck me because I had recently been playing the Resident Evil 4 remake.
Okay.
And like there is like a fucking palace type place in that game that is honestly like it kind of reminds me of this place. So I guess, I don't know. It just struck me.
I mean, if you look at the disparity between like the town that you hang out in versus that palace, I could definitely see the comparison,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the old fiefdom.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's the story of the Linares Palace and the ghosts that are supposedly there.
Have you seen Infinity Pool?
I have seen Infinity Pool. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about the the whole thing of the plot of that movie basically being rich people playing around with stuff that no one else has access to.
Yeah.
Which, anyway,
I really liked that movie.
Movie's great. We're starting and ending the episode this week with a little Cronenberg. David to begin and Brandon to end.
Absolutely.
So,
Nile, are you ready for a big question?
I so am.
All right. If you became a prominent figure where you live and then passed away and a scandalous rumor followed you after your death, what scandalous rumor do you think that would be?
Oh, God.
Because I know,
I'm trying to think,
what mine
like,
is.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think that when I become a very well-known, wealthy guy in Indianapolis,
right.
which, this is in the dark timeline where I stay in Indiana the rest of my life. Of course, at my mansion, I'll have erected a life-size Evangelion.
Okay. Yeah.
Tragically, of course, I will have passed away from the Evangelion statue collapsing on me when I try to get inside of it.
Right, you're gonna get smushed by the Eva. Gotcha.
By the Eva, and I think that it's just going to be that rumors abound that I have a pilfered collection of rare anime cells hidden somewhere in my property, that some of which I had to murder to get. Because by the time that I have that level of wealth, I will want to collect anime cells and animation cells. It's just a fact. And frankly, if I have fuck you money, I might as well kill for them.
Yeah.
So
I honestly, like, sky's the limit there.
Right.
You can really just kind of go to your heart's content. I can see that. Yeah. I think like having a secret stash in your building would be something that someone would think of you if you were rich. Definitely. I'm trying to think of me, because like I think if it's like the people that like vaguely interact, I think of like how people probably see me now in terms of the building I live in and stuff.
Sure.
Where like I feel like I come off just kind of awkward because I'm half the time I'm wearing headphones, and I also like just don't. I'm very shy, I guess. I don't know. Like I think I would be one of the people that someone would think would have like a body in the, or like a relative in the attic, because like I think. Yeah, I think that like people could get like a in the trope of like there's the spooky house on the hill that all the kids are kind of like dare each other to go into on Halloween and shit.
Yeah,
I think I could easily be that guy. And then it's all about how I've got like dead bodies and shit in my basement.
You're trying to create a Frankenstein of the bodies of famous punk musicians and such. Yeah. And
when in reality, I'm just like, actually, I have like a full-sized Kamen Rider suit in my basement,
exactly. Which falls over and crushes you.
When it falls over and crushes me, yeah.
So we're both going to be crushed by.
I'm gonna get buried under my under my DVD stacks. If I were rich, I would just buy like the entire fucking Criterion collection and then get smothered by it.
Exactly.
And Arrow Films and shit.
Yeah. So we're gonna be really cool in death too, I guess, is sort of the point of it all.
I hate that. Like, I need to get different hobbies, because every time we do a big question, I end up like, I would just like get a lot of movies and stuff, or like it really is.
Look, I'm no different. Like we're both just nerd ass to our core, and that's fine.
Look, I've watched like 20 movies already this month. That's just what I do. So I'm at least I'm consistent,
and we praise you for it.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. All right. I think we'll probably wrap this one up.
Sounds good. Business, I think, is what we do now.
All right. So if you want to find us on social media, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And run all your favorite podcatchers from Google Play to Apple Podcast to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're probably there.
Check out twitch.tv/itgetsweird. Once my fucking kidney stone situation is done, then I'm going to be back streaming. I promise it's going to happen. So go ahead and give us a follow there.
Hey, I think you might even be able to say, once you pop, you just can't stop.
Yeah, yes. Oh, yeah, exactly. And actually, I was going to live stream me pulling the tube out of
the uncorking, if you will.
The uncorking, yeah. That's gonna, that's gonna be a live stream to remember. And then email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com, especially if you can get access to, like I was saying, the information that I maybe don't have access to on a different language side of the internet, of the web. So please, but also just email us your stories. You know, we get emails in occasionally, and we will read them on the show if you hit us up. So please give it a shot. We have a Patreon, but you heard up front, I think people should just take a look at the organizations I mentioned. That's again Jewish Voice for Peace, If Not Now When, and Gaza Mutual Aid. Please check that stuff out. I mean, our Patreon is there too, and that's always there. But I'd like to sort of divert focus this week. So check that out, and donate to them instead, and see what they're saying with those organizations, who you can direct your attention to. I think that's worth your time right about now.
Agreed.
And if you can't donate to us, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Nile.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.